Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another in my series of Marvel Zombies mixed with other Zombicide games. This time we're going to look over Zombie Invaders, which is the sci-fi space game, to look at some of the expansions and stuff like that. If you haven't checked out the other videos, which I've also done for Classic Zombicide 2nd Edition and Undead Live, which is the Western, and I will be hitting Fantasy as soon as will probably be the next one I'm going after this. The idea of this video is to see if you're taking Marvel Zombies, can you combine it with the other games? And the quick answer is straight up not really, because they do play differently. Because just the regular Zombicide games, all the characters use decks of cards, they have items, they search rooms. That part of it is completely different. The part that stays the same is the overall general basis of the game. Walking through different, each player gets so many actions. The zombies spawn in a certain way. Line of sight, rooms. All the core rules are the same, so in that sense they mesh just fine. Just the survivors play differently than the Marvel characters. So, straight up, it's not just easy, it's not just saying, hey, grab one character from one game and throw them in the other game, like you could potentially do with the regular Zombicide games. But even those, if you mix the Invaders with, the Black Plague, they have different abilities and different cards, so they do work. You have to kind of, add extra decks and play around. So you can mix them all together. You just have to, have extra decks out for one game versus the other different game or genre in that sense. But what we want to go over in this video is we're going to do is, and sorry if you've seen the other videos, this is going to be kind of a reiteration on some of the same stuff, but this is for people that haven't seen it. We're going to look at the different tiles and kind of see how the tiles sort of work together, if they fit together, things like that. We're going to look at the tokens, and kind of see what the different tokens look like from one game to the other. And then we're going to look at the miniatures. So more of the focus is not necessarily how can I just combine these games together in straight up putting them one side here, one side here. But more or less, as I'm trying to do is see if I have Marvel Zombies, what components or what can I do with the Zombicide Invader, the space stuff here? What can I do, bring from that game and put it into Marvel Zombies? How can I expand Marvel Zombies more? And then it'll be kind of the same little ideas. What can I do if I wanted to take the Marvel Zombies stuff and expand Invaders? So we're going to go ahead and jump in and take a look at that. Alright, so first thing up, I say we're talking about the tiles. So here is our standard Marvel Zombie tile. Here's a very quick glimpse at it. So we have, of course, our Avengers Tower. We have our street zones, which have crosswalks denote which different area you are, plus different rooms. And if we flip it over the other side, we have a regular street area, some different houses and stuff. Then, if we take a look at a standard Invaders one. So, Invaders is a space sci-fi game. So, it takes place on the planet PKL-7? I might have that wrong. I think that's what it was. I can look it up really quick because it's right in the front of the book. And I say that and it's not right in the front of the book. Right where it would make sense. Alright, how come you're not listing this where I want it? Anywho, well, it's not that big of a deal. Whatever, they're on an alien planet. It's supposed to be, in the future, they're on an alien planet. And the idea is you're supposed to be in this space station or on this alien planet. So if I flip it to the other side, we have alien planet stuff on the outside. And in this version of the game, you are playing either civilians or space marines who are trying to fight off an alien invasion that has been infected with a quote-unquote zombie virus. They were nice and kind of just docile. They didn't really do anything. And all of a sudden they got infected with something. And now it's it's forcing them to attack and kill everything. So it's not your traditional zombies, not like undead human type things. They're an alien race, which I think could lead to some interesting different gameplay options. But, the tiles again are laid out the same. They have little barricades here showing the different spots on here. Here's your different rooms. Even if we flip it over the other side, they have little things showing that off. So it's the same idea there. There are a couple of differences, though. So, one big difference is Marvel Zombies has little spots on here for putting your bystander cards, and a little triangle here for where you put your objective tokens. So when you're playing a scenario or whatever, it's going to tell you this is where this goes, this is where this goes. Now, granted, you can just ignore these if you're making your own custom missions. And you can choose not to put something here, not to put something... And there might be some missions that don't even follow those rules anyhow, according to the book. But that's what those are for. The zombie, blah, 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 this one does not have any of those listed. It doesn't show any, it doesn't have anything on the board. For objective tokens, so you're going to put them wherever the map says. So it's a little bit more free range there. There are some special spaces on these boards that have special rules that work for the Zombicide characters, which obviously if you're having Marvel characters in, they could just ignore some of them. And I'll go over those in just a sec. But first thing I want to do here is lay some of these tiles down next to each other. So obviously, they're not going to fit in the traditional sense, because you're talking city, urban area versus space station. So, aesthetically, they're obviously not going to fit in. So, lining up. Gameplay-wise, though, there's no reason it says you can't lay these next to each other and have them work. But the other thing you're also going to notice is, here's the separation of the three tiles. It's small, large, small. These things are kind of a little bit more even. They don't line up directly. So, if I was playing with, we'll just grab Spider-Man here, and he was in the city, he wanted to move to the other side, technically his zone would be this area here, and then it would be this one, and then it would be this. So, it kind of offsets it a little bit that way. And then the same idea is if I have... Let's see if I can line these up at all. So, if I line up two things that have rooms next to each other... Now, here's the doors on these, and here's the doors on the Marvel ones. Now, they don't line up exactly, this one's kind of do, these ones don't at all. So again, that would be a thing if you're trying to just, mix these in next to each other. You could just I can tell which room is next to each other. You just have to realize the doors aren't going to line up 100%. Same thing with, the sidewalk areas. They're not going to always line up. I mean, even with any of the games, Zombicide games, sometimes if the tiles aren't the exact same style, they don't line up anyhow. So example here is just even Zombicide. If I put these two next to each other, the doors do line up properly. But if I wanted to have this that direction, they're not going to line up, because that doesn't make sense. Or if I have these two next to each other, they don't line up, because it's not a street next to a building zone. A corner next to a corner works, a full next to a full works, but that doesn't always line up that way. So what if I took a partial building and lined it up next to it? Nope, see, they're still not going to line up right. It's just what it is, right? There's not much you can do about that. So, just, before I even jump into any more of the tile stuff, is what my suggestion here is, if you want to play this, is you can play this in probably one of two different ways, based on the tiles. Either, so assuming we're playing Marvel Zombie, and again, if you don't remember, Marvel Zombie, either you can play as the zombies trying to eat human characters, or as alive superheroes trying to face off against the zombies. Depending on if you're playing traditional, regular Marvel Zombies, which is where you play as the zombies, or if you pick up one of the resistance modes, whether it's the Retail Heroes Resistance, or the later coming out X-Men Resistance, which will give you all the cards and stuff necessary to play as all of the heroes, because it gives you all the zombie spawns to fight against and stuff. So yeah, whichever way you're playing is, my recommendation is you can either A, just play the entire map on the Invader tiles and be like, hey, these are the Marvel characters are going onto the space station for whatever reason to fight something. Maybe you have your Guardians of the Galaxy box set, and you're having the Guardians are up on some space station and they're trying to do something. Maybe the Avengers had to go up and see what was going on like a Kree homeworld, or the X-Men went up to the Shi'ar space, a Shi'ar base or something, or maybe they're on the dark side of the moon and this is the Watcher's Citadel. You could have some scenario where they're in a space station and you just use the Invader tiles. So that's definitely one way you could play it. If you want to directly combine them with the Marvel tiles, and have some in the Marvel, some in not, then my recommendation would be to almost have like 2 split maps. And then so you have like a couple of the Marvel tiles over here, and like a gap or something, and then like a side here. So maybe like 4 on one side, 4 on the other, or 2 and 6, depending on how big you want your tiles. And essentially be like the Avengers start off on Earth, and then they have to get to some specific spot on the map, which will then let them activate like a transport device or something, so they can teleport to the space station. And then maybe they have to collect something in the space station. So maybe Earth down here is infected with regular zombies. This has aliens in it. And they have to fight the aliens while they're in the space. But then they have to fight down here. You have a bunch of different options you could play. Now, in the base game, there's not really any great tiles for... that's why I looked at some like the science labs to say like a teleporter. But we do later on, you can get the Fantastic Four set, which will have a device, like a spot in there. I'm sure that would work a lot better. Or, just do whatever you want. Make up your own room. It doesn't really matter. There's lots of different options you can do. I was just saying there's not really anything that just stands out in this particular set as of like a science room. So that's a different way you could play it as well. And that might be like you have to go to a space station. Like you have to discover certain objectives up there to collect different parts, and then you have to bring them back to Earth without getting defeated. But then maybe you also have to make sure you're not luring the zombies back to it. Like maybe then you have to destroy the portal. But then you maybe have to keep someone on Earth, to like guard that portal, because the zombies are going to constantly go towards it. If they get to it, then they can teleport to the base. So that could, so that could be an interesting type of scenario you could play. So I'm not going to look at any more of the zombie tiles. We're just going to go through the Invader ones and see what's all in here and what we have that we could potentially use. So, just on this tile, one thing to point out is they have these red security rooms. So, in these Invader series, like I said, you had 2 different classes of survivor characters, or your playable characters. There were civilian characters and soldier characters. The soldier characters have more health, but they can only search for items in these red security rooms. The civilians have less health, but they can search for items anywhere. Now, the Marvel characters don't have to worry about searching for items, so that doesn't mean anything to them. But this does mean you could use these red security rooms as a special setup or scenario, or do something for that. Again, you don't make your own thing, but you could do something with that. But that's what those are. The other difference in these tiles is the outside space zone. So, in Invader, they have special zones where you can go outside and walk on the planet. But to do so, you have to collect an O2 tank, which has a little extra card that you can get. I don't have it on me right now. And then you can go out the airlock. Is the only way to get across there. So, if I have, for example, if I have these 2 tiles here, for a character to go from this tile to this tile, they have to grab an O2 tank. Once they have it, they have it. You don't have to... Like, it's not used up, and then you have to recollect a new one every time. But someone has to collect it first. But then you have to leave here, and you can only enter there. Now, again, like, these tiles were set something more like this, then that means the person would come out the airlock here, they would have to go down this way, and then, you know, the other airlock spot is down here to get back in. So that could make them have to travel outside a little bit longer. Now, aliens can go outside. They don't care. It's their planet. So the aliens can go out there, but then there was other mechanics with the Invader game that said bullet-type weapons didn't work out in space, but electric weapons did. So it also limited what weapons you could use. So you had to really be prepared to go out and trek, especially if there was the Xenos or the alien zombies that were out there. So that could make a difference there as well. But again, this is one of the things, the Marvel characters don't use these cards. They don't have that option. Now, if I'm playing as Spider-Man, obviously Spider-Man probably just can't run out into the middle of the thing. So you could incorporate that into that, saying Spider-Man has to stop, pick up an O2 tank. But the thing is, you either have to say everyone can, or you could assume no one can. Either way, I guess it depends on how you want to play it, or if you really want to get super thematic, you could assume it just depends on who they are. Because like Captain Marvel, she can fly around in space without a mask on. Thor, he can fly around in space without a mask on. So there'd be no atmosphere reason why they couldn't go outside without this. So you could maybe change the rules. Instead of saying it's, breathable air, you can say it's a poisonous gas outside. So they have to get these canisters to do that so they can breathe outside. Again, I'm just snowballing, thematic reasons for that, for going outside. And then the thing with the weapons is, again, because all the Marvel characters just have a built-in ability, there's no way to sit there and really easily be like, oh, this person can use their ability outside, that person can't. Obviously, Hulk has a punch ability. He can use that outside. That doesn't matter. It's a melee attack. That shouldn't make any difference. But you could be like, if, a version of Winter Soldier or Deadpool or someone's firing a gun, oh, they can't. But can Wasp Sting Blast work outside? I think that's something you'd have to, unless you really want to dig way deep into trying to create a bunch of new rules, I would probably just say, hey, this is just different map tiles, this is just the outside buildings, kind of like the street, and you have to go around. You could add the O2 thing in there to make it a little bit more challenging, because then someone has to go stop and get an O2 tank first before they exit. But even that's kind of a minor thing, really, realistically, because the O2 tanks are always located right next to the airlocks. So it's not like the O2 tank might be somewhere across the entire map, and then you have to, come to the airlock and then get here. It's not like it's way over here, and I have to travel 6 spaces. It's always right next to it, and then you can leave. The only thing that really hinders is if you have to spend an action to do it. So that's here or there. But yeah, it's kind of neat about this is you do have these outside, and this is for the base game, is you do have a bunch of outside tiles. But you can get some that are, different styles. We'll take a look at them all here. So we got, and there are a lot more generic tiles again, because it's a base game. So we have outside, inside, hallway, and then doors. Now, the other thing you're also going to notice on this is there's no doors. Whereas the Marvel set has doors built in on their buildings. So they have doors built in. But they also all have door tiles, or tokens, which you can use to open and close. And we'll look at those in the next section when I get to the doors, or get to the token stuff. But we just want to look at the rest of the tiles here quick. So here we have a medical lab, which is kind of cool. Another just regular outside area. Their inside area, look at that one. We have just regular generic outside. So you have a corner one. So you can get a mess hall. A hallway. So here's one that has some different rooms. A little botanical garden. Plus it has some corner spaces, which are always fun. Some different ones here. So this one's kind of neat because it has an in way and you can go out these ways, but then to get around you have to go up. Nope, just some other different shaped tiles. Now, because this doesn't have your typical streets you're looking at, you just gotta imagine these are your streets. You know, so it's the same thing. So it's like building here, this is your streets. Instead of being outside streets, though, they're just indoor hallways. Yeah, one, it's just kind of neat. You can go either direction for an airlock. Here's a botanical gardens. A corner spot for the airlock. You know, again, nothing super spectacular, nothing out of the ordinary. Lots of these are just 9 spaces on the board. Very simple, 9. And then they're just shaped differently. There's not too many that have like a different or odd shape, which is, again, fine for a base game. I always like it when they start getting some of the unique shapes. Alright, so the next thing... Ooh, I almost threw some tiles on the floor. The next one we want to look at are the 9 tiles that came in the other big box set. So this is the Invader core set. You could also pick up Dark Side, which is a kind of like a second year or second season set, which adds a bunch of new elements and rules to the game. Well, different stuff to it. I don't know how new elements, but so this being it's called Dark Side, they have dark rooms. Now this one takes completely inside of a base or like a cavern or like an underground base or something like that. So there is no outside orange tiles on this. So these can be added in very easy with your, well, that's not a hallway, that's a door, but, you know, they could be added in with your regular tiles, and be like, okay, this hallway leads into this room. Oh, some of these tiles are dark rooms, but it's not going to have any of your outside areas. So yeah, if I try to combine some of these, they don't work as well, because there's all these outside areas. But if you take one of these, again, some of these full ones, you can combine them in there very easily. So you can definitely combine these together to make some bigger space stations. But these have dark areas, which are still navigatable. Your characters can still go through them. They just have a dark rule, which briefly would be characters in the dark. It messes with their line of sight. Let me see if I can find the exact rules really quickly, so I can just explain how dark works. Yeah, so here we go. Dark zones. Survivors can't trace lines of sight into two dark zones except at range 0. So while you're out in here, you can't see farther than once from the exact space away. So this would be if Zombie Hulk is standing right here and Zombie Spider-Man's right here. He can't see the Hulk in the dark. Now, he'd have to like move over into the one spot. Obviously, you can see on the board where they're at, but you can't draw lines. So you can't do ranged attacks in the dark unless you have something that illuminates it, which the game has like flashlights and some different things like that. There are some exceptions to that rule. It says Xenos, or the aliens, ignore this rule and can trace line of sight normally, so that aliens can see through the dark, which makes the dark areas even more deadly for the characters. So, like, in the base one where they had the alien tiles out here, where you limited half your weapons because you couldn't use bullet weapons versus electric weapons or energy weapons. So that made that more difficult. If you had to travel out, you had less equipment you could use. This one limits your sight, so again, you're limited your ranged attacks to just melee weapons. There are some other different exceptions there. But yeah, so that's basically how that works. Now, there is a slight caveat to that rule is, let me grab another tile here. See if I can figure out how to align these tiles properly. Yeah, like this. So, Spider-Man here can't see Hulk because he's in the dark, but he can see this room over here. So if Zombie Deadpool is here, Spider-Man can't do a ranged attack and hit the Hulk because he can't see him, but he can see over into this nether light area, and he can attack, if he had to attack long enough, he can attack Deadpool. Still suffers the same thing if you can't attack more than one space. Extra inside of a building, but that's kind of the way the light works, is you can still see a light on the other side, so you can go across that direction. Yeah, so the Dark Zones do add some interesting new elements. Zombicide 2nd Edition had you had a nighttime mode, which was very similar to this, except that was based on every turn the time clicked, and then it would become night for X number of turns, and then it become day again. This just has areas that are always dark. Yeah, so let's take a look at some of those. You have something like this, which is a single room with all dark. This could be like, hey, we start in this area and we have to leave into the darkness, and we have to try and find some of the other lit up rooms. Or this could be where a special objective is. Yeah, so definitely some neat and interesting tiles there. They do have like little lights on here to show your spots. But again, like the base game, these are all lots. These are just 9 squares on here with just different things. There's not a lot of like special looking areas. It's just a lot of dark areas. So that's probably one of the downsides of this particular version of Zombicide, is all the rooms are very generic because it's just square, 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 square. Whereas if you looked at the Marvel ones, you had some that were little short rooms, really long rooms. Some that maybe had different shapes in them. These are very, trying to think of the word. I want to kind of say plain, but that's, maybe not even what I'm looking for. But yeah, they're squares. There's 9 squares on each tile, but they do blend into a lot of different elements. But again, yeah, this could be a fun thing to mix with the other set, or you could just pick up this core set. They also do release tile packs, so you could even potentially just pick up this tile pack if you wanted to for one of these games. And you could find them, and then just play the Marvel characters on these boards and not even have to deal with any of the other miniatures or any of that other stuff. If you don't want to. Although I think the Xenos are actually really fun elements. I can't wait to show them off in this video. But those are the 9 tiles for Black Ops. Then there was one more expansion called... Sorry, that's Dark Side. Black Ops gives us 3 more tiles. So these go back to having the outside zone. This is like a true, like an actual expansion to the core game. But it can definitely be worked with all the rest. But again, you still have your 9 tiles. Although, look, we do have one big room. So that's kind of fun. So we do get some spaces like that. So here's another one. We have like a bigger room right here. Otherwise, it's, 9 tiles. It's like each one has one big room in it, which just, again, adds a little bit of a variety to it. This one has one in the middle. This one has one here. So it adds a little bit of difference to that. The other thing you're going to notice on here is they have these blue pods all over the place. So you've seen them on a couple of tiles. And what those are in the game universe, they're trying to harvest this stuff, and these are basically like pods that are like full of this explosive material that you're trying to harvest. So the idea is you can shoot these with a ranged weapon, and then it explodes and kills anything in that area. So it's a neat thing to add in to the mixture of the other tiles, because it adds a way to like eliminate a lot of enemies all at one time by shooting these. Now, granted, you probably don't want to have these separated out a little bit if you have all 3 of these tiles just sitting next to each other, and then, nothing else around. Then you're just going to be like, boom, 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 then the rest of the map is kind of empty. But it's a neat little expansion you could add in there if you wanted to use that mechanic as well. Marvel doesn't need to rely... They don't have, like, the dynamite, or this one would be, like, the thermal grenades for this set. They'll let you kill everything in one zone with an item, because they all have the ability to save up action points, spend them to roll extra dice. So they just, in general, have a way to do more damage without having to wait and rely on finding a weapon that does extra damage or having one item they can use that blows up everything. So this is kind of a neat thing, but it's, not as necessary as Marvel. But that being said, Zombicide does also add concentrated attacks, which work very kind of similar to Marvel things. So this is a gameplay mechanic versus, because Marvel has action points, I think that's what they're called, but you spend them to, roll extra dice, and then you can either spend actions to gain more points every turn. You gain 1 every turn anyhow, so that way you can kind of do it, and you can, risk spending your points to do a lot more damage in one shot, which is kind of a neat idea. Zombicide has a thing called concentrated attacks, where normally you target a zone, and then you do damage, and you roll your dice, and if you did 3 hits, you do hits to 3 different things in that zone. What the concentrated attacks do is, instead of targeting the zone, you target one specific zombie or Xeno, and then you roll all your dice specifically doing damage. So if you had a weapon that normally did 1 damage, and you rolled 3 hits, you would do 3 hits to that one target, which allows you to take out bigger enemies, but it means you can only take out 1 enemy. So if you ended up, you probably wouldn't use a concentrated attack on a character that only has, a zombie that only has 1 health, because it's wasted if you get more than 1 hit. But it lets you take out the abominations very easily that had 3 health. Because you could roll, I have 5 dice. I could roll, I rolled all 5 successes. I did 5 damage to that thing. Now granted, it would have been better in hindsight that if you knew that's what you're going to roll, to get to 3, if you get 5 dice, now I can do this. But the thing is, if your weapon only does 1 damage, rolling 5 ones won't do anything to a abomination, because you're going to hit it 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Versus now you're doing 5 damage to that. So it's kind of a neat idea that they do with the concentrated, which I would love to almost see that in other games, but I get it's thematic with their weapons, because they're essentially charging their weapons, versus comic book characters could maybe do that, but depending on what they are, Bucky can't really charge his knife, or Black Panther can't charge his claws, whereas Wasp could charge her her bolts, or Captain Marvel could charge her cosmic blast, type of thing. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Alright, so I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to grab and we're going to look at tokens. Alright, so here we have, I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit better here. So yeah, we want to go over the tiles here. So the different tiles and things and components and stuff. So invaders come with dice, which are just regular D6s. Nothing special about them. Now, you can get the Kickstarter packs, or if you had the exclusive ones, that had some special neat symbols on, which are definitely cool. Which had extra sci-fi pips and stuff. Unfortunately, they don't come with the base game. Marvel, on the other hand, does come with some cool dice to begin with. They have little blood splatters with a set of teeth for your 1, which is your bad roll, usually. So again, if you're kind of mixing these games even, it's kind of a neat thing to maybe just even use the Marvel dice. Just something different to show off. So we have spawn points. So Marvel's spawn points look like these. We have a red one, a blue one, which can kind of flip over. So we have one that shows zombies, one that shows human characters. So depending if you're playing superheroes versus zombies, or zombies versus humans, you have 2 different spawn points. They come in different colors, so if they have the different objectives, you can be normally I always spawn red, but then maybe these ones don't spawn unless you hit the green or the blue. Now, you're usually only using one or the other, one or the other color, depending on which game you're playing. Unless you're making up your own game where you're playing, some players are playing Marvel, some players are playing zombies, and both other types of things are spawning, but that's another entirely thing that you can do, playing teams against each other. Invaders, though, has these ones. So these are kind of neat as well. They have these big red ones here. Otherwise, you can get like the red ones that flip over. They have green ones as well. Or you can get them in white. They have a bunch of different colors. Some are in one set, some are in the other sets. Each of the 3 big expansions are the Invader, Black Ops, and Dark Side. Each add a couple different colors. So it's actually kind of neat because it gives you a little bit more different objectives. Now, like, these ones are fine. Humans, zombies, you can usually tell the difference between them. These are just aliens, so these work great if you're summoning the Xenos. I've looked at some of the other Zombicide ones. I almost kind of like some of the other ones better than these from the Marvel, just because the pictures on them look more. A giant exclamation point. I kind of like just the plain look. But these ones don't work as well if I'm trying to summon shield agents, to fight off against my Hulk. But they'd be great if you're going to combine the Xenos in here, which is one thing I'll get into a little bit more about, but it would be kind of an interesting idea, regardless if you're playing heroes or zombies, if the Xeno alien characters pop in and attack no matter what. So maybe they have their own spawn phase, maybe they attack whoever's on the board. So they'll attack, if you're fighting against zombies and you're a hero, they'll maybe attack the heroes. The zombies is in their spot, and they'll eat them. They don't care. They'll then go after the humans. They'll go after companions. They'll do whatever they want. So there's something you can play around with that as well. There's a bright neon exit sign as well if you want one of those. Hey, we have to get to the exit. So those are a couple different tiles there. Then we have doors. So Marvel has its doors, which are just, regular doors. They're broke open. There are different colored ones as well. I just apparently didn't grab one. But you could use these in here if you wanted to. Set up different doors. But what is neat is, again, this is one thing that's really cool about the Zombicide one, or the Invader one, is we have colored doors. So again, some of these come from one set to the others. Purple, pink, white, blue, green. There's some. I don't know if there's a red one. There might be. I might have missed a color. White is the general neutral door that doesn't require any specific thing. But then other ones require you to get to different objective tokens. So they have these objective tokens that are just little X's. And then some are colored. So maybe if I can't access the white door until I find the white objective token. So if that's hidden in this room, you put this white one over here, then that door is locked until you get this. When it's done, then you can remove the door. Now it can be entered. Or you can put a bunch of neutral doors and other stuff. And there might be a thing of maybe if you don't have enough of these tiles, you have the Marvel, you could just combine like these tiles on these doors saying, this door isn't accessible, at all. I have to find these space doors to open. So you can just pretend that's almost like a wall token. And that means characters can only go through this. They can't come back out this way. Normally, that could always be an option as well. And then they all have broken sides as well, so someone can bash the door open that can't be opened or closed. So definitely some different options there. Alright, so we're going to slide all those guys off. Speaking of objective tokens, I really like these guys. So, Marvel has Tony Stark crates. You get them in different colors. Usually red on one side, but they could be blue or green. Again, corresponding to if you activate a certain thing, or you find the objective. Oh, look, I found the blue one. Now I can open up blue doors. Or I can do this blue spawn point starts, is the idea there. And these ones have different colors as well. But I also like the fact is they're like, I like these kind of as like, this should be neat for like, I have to find a specific item or a thing. These might be good for like, kind of neat, even just again, adding a Marvel even if you want to, as a trigger point. So like, if this is sitting here and someone steps on this zone, regardless if it's my character, the Hulk character, a regular zombie character. Then it activates, it flips open. Oh crap, now we've tripped the white spot. Now the white spawn zone opens, or the white door opens, so maybe there was things that were spawning in there. You could have had, again, we could have had this blocked off in here, and oh, look, the Hulk spawned in there, and now as long, someone comes over here, and they go to this tile, they're like, oh, what's this do? I'll interact with this to see what this thing does. They interact with it because maybe they're trying to open up a door somewhere else. Oh crap, it was the white tile. Now it's going to open up this door, and it gets rid of it. Now the Hulk can escape. You might be like, before that, he couldn't escape. Granted, a big character probably wouldn't care, but you could use the same idea. Summon a bunch of regular zombies, or a bunch of the Xeno aliens got trapped in an area, and then you accidentally, because you have these tiles all shuffled up, you accidentally open up a wrong door. Or you need to act you have to collect the blue one to activate a treasure. These could be something for something completely different. These could be items you have to collect. They might be you have to collect the blue item, but then use these to trigger doors. Just as a differentiating thing. Again, maybe even not have it be an activated thing. Maybe be this tile is sitting right here, and if someone walks into that spot, it activates it. So as a hero character, I would have to go around. So instead of taking 1, 2, 3 actions to get to this spot, I would have to go 1, 2, 3. I would have to go around it, to make sure I don't step on that spot. But the thing was, if I'm hanging out back here, and the Hulk is right here, his turn he activates, oh look, he moves here, automatically triggers that. So that could be a thing there too, a different idea. These are trigger spots. Maybe not have it in the middle of the hallway, but you could have it in a side room. Which would also make then your characters have to kind of avoid certain areas. Or you can just set up traps or different things like that. There's some, again, just different gameplay things you could do, but still keep it within the realm of the rules of the game without having to make up special rules. It's basically this thing gets activated or gets triggered, it does something versus just using them crates. It'll be kind of interesting. So, a couple other tokens that the Invaders game has. We have sound tokens, which the Marvel set doesn't use. They don't use sound tokens. The other Zombicide games do. They're noise tokens, I should say, not sound. They're to signify a character making noise, and that's going to attract the zombies. So, the idea is supposed to be, if a zombie can't see you, it won't attack you. If it can't see anything, it'll go towards the noise. So if you have a noise token by you, it could attract you that way. You did something that made noise. You shut a loud thing or getting an attack or something. Otherwise, typically, they're going to go after whatever area has the most characters. So, the idea would be like this. Would be, if the Hulk is going to attack, he can't see either characters. So what he's going to do is he's going to go towards the Wasp, because each one counts as a noise, but then she also had a noise token. So he's going to go towards her, which of course this is one area, so he's going to go that way. Even though, technically, it would take him 1, 2, 3 to get to him, and it would take 2 to get to Spider-Man. He's going to go towards the loudest area. So that was a neat thing that the older Zombicide games did that Marvel doesn't do. They don't play around with the sound. They kind of eliminated it to streamline the game a little bit more. But yeah, it's something you could add in there. You do an action, you drop a noise token. It was also used for the idea of you had multiple of them. So if you did multiple attacks, every time you did certain, it had to depend on what weapon you had. Usually guns made noise, melee attacks like swords and knives didn't. So again, that would be a thing, since Marvel doesn't have those symbols on the cards. You'd have to make up a reason for himself. You could just be anytime they do an attack, they leave a noise token. So if Wasp was standing right here and she's attacking a bunch of zombies here, and she ended up killing them all, she attacked 3 or 4, and you had 3 or 4 tokens laying here. The end of her turn, she moves way over here. Now the Hulk, again, would be oh, where am I going to go? He's going to go towards the 4 noise tokens over here, before he's going to go after Wasp, even though technically Wasp is the same distance away, but he's going to go towards the loudest area. Now, if there was one token there, but these two are here, he would go after these two, because they're the loudest. Two people are louder than one. So that'd be kind of an interesting thing you could add into Marvel, if you wanted to, but again, you'd have to kind of make up your extra rules for that, since they're not on the equipment. So, that's up to you. Alright, next thing we have are these two special little tokens here. So you have a purple one and a green one. They do flip over to be objective tiles as well. So you can be like, you have to discover these. But if you do find them, they are control spots for remote controls for your bot robots or your sentry robots. So this is kind of cool. This is one thing I really love about this Invaders game. You have sentry turrets or you have bots. And each set has a set of these. So Invader has a set, Black Ops has a set, and Darkseid has a set. Plus, if you get some of the Kickstarter stuff or expansions that like things that way, you can get even more of these. But they add extra little robots that come in and can do extra things. They have their own little mini cars. They have different things. The gun has usually some type of ranged attack. The the bot here has usually a ranged and a melee attack, and it can move around. But what's neat about these tokens is if Spider-Man's in this area and he's in the, I don't remember what symbol this is. I think this is, I don't remember which one's which. I'm guessing that's probably the turret. That might be the bot. I don't remember. But let's say if this is the turret one. Now he can then activate this turret from where he's at, which can now shoot at a ranged distance. It can turn, shoot the Hulk. It's kind of neat. So it could be like way over here in this, hidden in this room, and then now he can activate this turret as long as he's there. And it lets him do extra damage without having to get close. Now the same idea could be Wasp could be controlling this one. It lets her move this bot around, and this bot can run up and do a melee attack or a ranged attack. It's a neat idea. Now the survivors in Invader, some of them have that ability built into their character. They have, like, one of their skills they can learn is the ability to use these things, use the controlling the bots without having to be on these tokens. The Marvel characters don't have that. Now, obviously, again, you could make up your own rules and give some characters that would have the ability to learn that, like Ant-Man or, I don't remember who else on there. Maybe Spider-Man has the ability. Scientist characters, Mr. Fantastic would have the ability to just, like, learn that somehow. But again, that's creating extra rules that aren't in the game. But even just putting these down and letting the characters use them throughout the game would be kind of a neat idea. Just to add, like, extra cool concept to the game. They get extra things to do. Because sometimes these things can be, well, I don't have you can't see on my map over here. But the turret guns could actually have been outside in the, outside land, and they can still shoot when they're outside, things like that. So it's kind of a neat mechanic. The other thing that went with them is they had this little control icon. So if this shot something, it gets this icon, which now these zombies or Xenos consider that to be a survivor character, so they will go attack it. So if Spider-Man shot and killed some zombies on his turn with the turret, now the next turn Hulk is going to consider this to be a character. So instead of trying to go after Wasp or Spider-Man, he's going to run over here, attack this, destroy it. Now you've lost your turret gun. So using them too many times in a row is bad, because then you're going to keep this token on it, and then zombies are going to attack it. Now if he attacked one turn now, then the next turn Hulk activates, he moves one spot. Then if you didn't use it during your next turn, this goes away. Now the next time Hulk's going to be like, I don't know what that is. He's going to ignore it. So it is kind of a cool item. And the same thing with this guy, moving him around. Again, if you give him a melee range, and he attacks someone melee, if he doesn't defeat everybody in that range, and there's no one near him next that could attack him, he's going to get a token. And then he's going to get attacked on the next turn and destroyed. Now, you can use these things as decoys or sacrifices as well. It's kind of like that noise token idea. Is a cool idea. And then some of these guys have some different special abilities. They look neat. We'll look at them later when we look through the tokens. I just kind of wanted to show all them off. We have 2 more tokens. Alright, quick thing before we hop onto that. Before we hop onto the next token, I just want to show. So for Marvel, we have this Avengers sign. And then the X-Men set, you also have the Sentinel Glove, which lets you do a ranged attack, and then you can flip it over. I think then you can use it for a melee. But it has a little card here. It says you can throw this as a ranged attack. You roll dice for each enemy in the zone. So if there's 5 enemies, you roll 5 dice. With a little accuracy of 4. So it's not the best thing, but it lets you throw an object, which is kind of a neat idea. And I recommend in the other Zombicide games they have like cars and stuff, which would be a cool addition to throw into the Marvel one. Instead of using the driving mechanic, you know, and having them sitting in a car running people down. Because you can't really see superheroes doing that as much. You could see them though picking up that car and throwing it as a ranged attack. So that would definitely be a neat idea there. You could also do a similar idea with with these weapons, right? Like Hulk's over here. You could be like, you know what? Spider-Man's standing here, so rather than keep using the gun where he's at, he could throw the gun, like rip it out of the ground, throw it at the Hulk, and you could have it do a lot more damage. You know, maybe it does, instead of like this, like rolling dice, again, you have it be the exact same thing. You know, now, is that necessarily beneficial versus the sign not doing anything versus the gun doing damage? Maybe not, but if it's gonna get attacked and probably destroyed on the next turn anyhow because you used it, like you could fire with it, it could get one of the tokens. The next turn, the Hulk's gonna move over and destroy it, or someone's going to, you know, and it doesn't have enough firepower to take out the Hulk, but he took out the other zombies. You could then maybe say, hey, I can throw it, and now it does enough damage to take out the Hulk, right? So, you know, like you're sacrificing it to take out one of them characters. That could be an interesting thing. Also mentioning, while Spider-Man's standing in this area, he can use the turret gun anyhow. He can sit here and control it without having to be on the token, which actually, I have these tokens backwards. I just happened to look that up. The purple one are for the sentry guns, and the green ones are for the bots. But that's the same idea with this guy here. If Spider-Man's in the same zone, he can basically tell it to do a melee attack to something in the zone, or tell it to do a range attack. If he moves, it can move with him for free. You know, without having to spend an action to move it. Otherwise, you can be on the spot, and you could have someone move it from a distance. So yeah, they have some really good versatility there. I just forgot that, so I wanted to just mention that. So we have 2 extra little tokens to look at quick. We have the prototype token. This is for, like, the rarer weapons. Lots of Zombicide games, you have common weapons. If you search a room, you get a common weapon. Then they have special spots you can activate or check, which get you special tokens. These are probably more kind of like these chests for that. But since Marvel, again, doesn't use prototype weapons, this doesn't really have a thing. But you could add this in as, if you want to try and find some use for it for the campaign, you could. I don't really know exactly what you'd want to use it for, because it's meant to pull out the special guns. Oh, is that? And then the last one we have is the camouflage token, which is a token you can put by a specific, certain characters. The invaders, survivors have the camouflage ability, which you can put this by them if they use it. As long as a Xeno is not on their spot, they are now invisible. So if he was standing here, he turned invisible, the Hulk would just walk right by him. You can move with this token as well, as long as you don't use an attack action, I think, or a search action, as long as you only move. Or, I believe there might be other little rules. The zombies don't see you. Now again, as far as I know, none of the Marvel characters have that unless they added it in a later expansion. But I don't ever remember seeing any mention of that. That could be, again, if you want to create your own rules, there's obviously some characters that could have a camouflage type ability. You know who would make sense for it? The Wasp. You know, you could give her the camouflage ability. If you're giving some people the ability to control machines, you could give some people, you know, the camouflage ability. Like, they have the option, like, to spend this token, like, they keep it by their player card, they could spend it, and then, hey, she shrunk down so small, her or Ant-Man, they can't be seen. You could even maybe potentially give it to someone like, you could argue like Iron Man maybe has a stealth mode on a suit, or I'm trying to think like Invisible Woman. So they could use these camouflage abilities to be kind of an interesting idea. But that's what that token's meant to represent. So I just thought that'd be kind of interesting to point out. Alright. So the last two types of little things you have to show are, for Invader, we have mold spawns. So there's these usually start on the board in one spot. This is part of the thing that's just going to make the alien Xenos harder to fight, is they have these mold spawns. And then there's the abomination that comes out. It's called the spoiler abomination. As he moves along the board, and I don't have him out with me right at the moment, he will actually drop more of these down. And then if there's like one here and one here, if at any point during the game the two spots ever connect, you lose the game. It's an interesting mechanic because then it makes you have to, instead of doing the, I'm going to run away and like, oh, there's a lot of zombies here, I'm going to run away, kind of protect myself, gather my things, come back to little pot shots or hit and runs. It makes you, if these things are close, you have to almost stick near the action. You have to stick in there, you have to defeat these guys so that if them abomination spawns, he doesn't spawn and add more of these together. It kind of such a thing. The new Fantasy White Death series is doing the same thing, a similar thing like the corruption tokens. They're going to have a corruption that spreads across the board. But yeah, it adds a different element to the game. So instead of just, I have to survive zombies doing stuff, it adds, I have to worry about this corruption, this mold spreading across the map. So it's kind of a neat idea. And then there's, with the Zombicide deck, the Xeno deck, there's also some cards that'll force things to spawn from these, which makes it harder. The other thing they also do is when they're in a room, they destroy all the walls. So, like, these are some bad ideas because these all have walls. Well, here's actually a really good example right here. So, scooch, scoochy, scoochy, scooch. So, right here, you can enter through this zone, enter through this, but you can't get through this. If this zone was corrupted, or had a mold on it, this wall no longer exists. So now characters can enter through all three areas. Now, with the game mode is it won't destroy an airlock, so you can still get out the airlock. It won't destroy an O2 spot. It will destroy an O2 spot. So that's also another issue there. They won't ever go, they might spread outside, but it won't ever prevent you from leaving an area. But it destroys any doors that were there, destroys all the walls. Things can be seen through, gets rid of all that stuff. So it does make that stuff a little bit harder. Like most of these spots all have open walls on all four sides. It's not a big issue there. But yeah, there's that kind of idea. Then the other thing it does is it makes the room unsearchable. So again, for Marvel characters, it's not really a big deal. Because they don't quote unquote search rooms, but it does for the survivors. Again, you could kind of tie that into like, they have the ability to draw a new trait. You could be like, if a Spidey's on these things, you could be like, he's too freaked out, he can't draw new traits while he's on them. So he has to move off of those tiles. And that could be an interesting way to limit the characters from doing that. They do have the ability to flip over and become inactive, so that they don't spawn or do any of that stuff. And that's just basically by attacking them with a fire attack. But again, this game Marvel doesn't necessarily have that, so you'd have to like figure out some extra rule for doing that if you wanted to. But that is definitely something you could do, and they actually give you a decent amount of these. So you have enough to spread these, like this is like 6 tiles away. You could have them be like 4 or 5 tiles away, so it could take a lot of turns. You could have 2 of them going from different directions. And then one of the Black Ops game actually adds even more, so if you had both sets, you'd have a lot of these. The other types of tiles are holes. So we have these pit holes, which are from Black Ops set. Nope. Are they? I think so. No, maybe they're from Dark Side. They're from Dark Side. Sorry. They're from the Dark Side. They have a special type of new Xeno in here called Drillers. So they place these tiles on the board. For the most part, other than making the spots unsearchable, they don't do anything extra, except if one of the aliens are in them. They can't be... It takes one extra hit to do range damage. So basically, they gain one extra health. So, for example, if the Hulk was in here and he normally has 5 health, he would now have 6 health if he's in this hole, because he's hidden down below. Unless someone gets in the same spot and attacks him at 0 range. Because then they can, like, get right on top of him and shoot down into the hole, or attack down into the hole. And that's more or less that. And the same thing is you could spend a action, or spend not an action, but an ability that would destroy everything in a zone to cover these back up. Because there are some things that can spawn from them zones. But yeah, there's a decent amount of these. But yeah, that's just an idea there. Is something you could throw in there. Basically, if an enemy's in that hole, they're going to be harder to fight. Like, you could have, like, zombies are coming from the ground. So you even make these, like portable, like, underground spawn spots. This might be a cool idea if they ever add Mole Man. Add Mole Man and add some zombie versions of the Moltoids. And they could come out of there. So it's maybe a future idea they might add. Alternatively, you could also add these into a rule that Zombicide Classic had for Angry Neighbors, which they had holes on the maps. And how the holes work is, if you are in a hole, it costs 2 additional action points to get out. So normally it costs one action point to move. It costs 2 additional, so it costs 3 points to get out of a hole. So therefore, a hero, unless they've earned extra abilities, have to spend their full turn getting back out of the hole. But then the idea was a regular zombie who only has 1 or 2 actions, would fall into the hole and not be able to get back out. And, so it became like a trap for them. And that could be an interesting idea, as well as you put some of these along the board somewhere, like, zombies broke through, they made a hole somewhere, or there's holes in the, foundation. I get these look like rocks versus, that, but like they broke a hole in the bottom of the base somewhere. And now if anyone falls into that hole, they have to spend extra actions to get out. So that could be an interesting mechanic as well. Or you can always play this as being big giant rocks that you throw at people. Hulk picks this up, throws it. There's also a different idea you could play something like that. Alright, so that's all our different tokens I have. We're going to take a look at some of the different miniatures and just see how they kind of compare. And, same idea. Things we can go over with them. Alright, so we talked about the cool tiles and things you could kind of do with them. We talked about all the neat different tokens and what you could do with them. Now we're going to look at the miniatures and get some ideas there. So obviously, again, we have our Marvel Zombies, our Marvel Heroes. And you can choose which mode you want to play depending on what sets you have. Now, and I'm not going to pull the miniatures out for these, but if you're playing as zombies and you get the core set, you're playing against shield agents. So various different human characters. And if you have the resistance set, you are playing against zombies. Now, if you get the core set, you're getting little standees that look like typical human zombies. So they're not 3D miniatures, they're little standees, a little bit cheaper. If you eventually get the X-Men set, which I don't have because it's not out as of this video, you'll get, for your walkers, runners, and brutes, different 3 main sizes Zombicide has, you get multiple man, Hellfire Club runners, and Reavers, which are giant guys on tank treads. So they're kind of cool looking, but like they're not your regular zombies. And that's one thing I've kind of themed with this game is, if you want to get something where these superheroes are fighting just zombies versus these other superheroes type characters, mixing these other sets are kind of neat. Now, that's the whole thing with like mixing with core, because now you can take the human characters from there. But if we're fighting in space, obviously you're going to want to have to fight something different. So Now, if you're playing as your heroes, instead of fighting the zombies, you could fight the Xenos, which are their version of the zombies, and we'll look at those in just a sec. Or you could opt, again, like I said earlier, you could opt to even have all the Xenos fight, regardless of what side. They could fight the zombies. They could just be aliens, and the zombies are like, we came up here looking for humans, and now we have to fight these aliens. You know, that could be something there as well. And they could work the exact same. They have, like, the same stats and stuff, like hit points, movement type of ideas. Well, for the most part, they do. So, yeah, there's something you could do there. Now, another option you could do is, you can either do, like, again, you can mash up. So we have survivors from, let's just look at these guys. We have survivors from the, from Invaders here. So these are the human characters you play as. Now, some of these are from the core game, some are from an expansion, some are from a Kickstarter expansion. So I'm just kind of showing them all off. But yeah, we get like a civilian type character here, who's just more or less looks like kind of like a woman. She has a gun, of course. They're gonna arm themselves. This is more like your typical survivor. But then you can get some different armored soldier characters. You know, some have melee weapons, some have guns. You'll get some different designs in there. And occasionally there's sometimes an alien. This is actually kind of one of my more favorite ones, because this is one of the Xenos that got turned into into a helper. So that's kind of neat as well. But you have some other different alien characters you can play. So they're not always human. They're just not as many aliens as would have been kind of neat. But what you could definitely do with these characters is you could swap them in if you're playing as the zombies. So instead of using shield agents, you could swap them in. Let me actually just grab some of them quick. So, like, here's our brute. There's our runner. Or, sorry, our walker. And there's one of our runners. For Marvel. So, let's just scooch these guys out of there. So, if I'm playing as these, I think you could do two different options if you wanted to. Maybe less so with this one versus the other ones, the other Zombicide games. I've said you could always swap out your walkers, who you have a ton of, for the other characters. And now, I believe you could do that if you swap them out for civilian type characters. Let me grab some. Try not to spill all my stuff everywhere. So if I grab some of the other civilian-style characters, let me scooch these guys out of the way. You know, people that look more like... And these are... The ones I'm grabbing currently are from the Kickstarter. But they're the people that aren't in heavy armor. You could swap these guys out for the walkers if you wanted to. I know they're different named in the Marvel, and you know, in here they're actually different named sometimes too. But you could definitely swap them out and be like, I don't want to just play as generic shield characters. I would rather have some interesting sci-fi guys that we're trying to fight against. You know, like protecting the base. And plus get you a bunch of different models instead of the same, you know, two different versions of this. So you could definitely swap them out. Alternatively, the same idea is you could swap out these big, giant, tanky brute guys for your armored characters. And now, the only thing is if you combine them, you just have to try and remember. That's what's nice about Marvel, they made them different shades, so you can quickly tell them apart. But, you know, you could, you know, it'd be fairly easy to tell. Big, bulky guys versus skinnier guys. But you can even swatch them out, and then now as you just have your runners, which are, you know, shield agents with running, they're showing you to look like they're running. And you can even mix and match. You can throw a couple of these guys in, or a couple of these guys in here or there. But if you want to play it more space thematically, you could swap these guys in and out for some of them other characters. That's always one option. The other option would be still playing as all these characters, but instead swapping these guys in instead of the Marvel heroes. So if I have my Zombie Hulk and Zombie Deadpool, and they're running around the space station, and they're going to try and eat something. So you normally want to draw a superhero card, or which would be the equivalent of an abomination card. I would draw one of the characters. I might have Wasp or Spider-Man come out. You could instead of playing them, which they usually have like a little special ability they can do. Some have different health. A lot of the characters have 3, some have 4 or 5, depending on who they are. Like Hulk has a little bit more health than like Wasp does, But like you could swap these guys out and instead put these guys in as just like generic abominations. They have the 3 health, they do 1 action, stuff like that. So that's definitely something you could do as well. And then that way, if you don't want your zombie heroes eating other heroes, you're like, hey, then that way we can just have them fight these soldiers at the base. So, like, they have shield agents running around trying to do, like, the regular stuff, but then, like, when they need a specialized character, you summon one of these unique, different other models, which would be kind of neat. Now, again, they don't have any special abilities attached to them, which would make them, or different health amounts, which could potentially make them easier than the Marvel characters to have to fight, but it could definitely be an interesting idea. And if you really were that concerned about it, you could always draw one of the heroes anyhow, their cards, and if I drew, for example, if I drew Spider-Man's card, you could instead put this guy out instead of Spider-Man, but then maybe keep Spider-Man's card around and just use his stats. The only problem there is if you get 2 or 3 different guys on there, it's trying to remember which one was which. That would be the only issue there. But it's definitely something you could mix and match in that way if you want to do something different. If you want to utilize the survivor characters in here. The third thing you could do overall in general is you could always play, a mixed game of, if you're playing as the heroes, you could have 2 people play as Wasp and Spider-Man, and 2 people play as these survivors. The survivors would then have to have their equipment, their item and equipment decks out. They would still have to follow the rules if they need to search areas. This guy can only search this area. She could search any area because he's a soldier, she's a civilian. Where the Marvel characters would have their special abilities and stuff. But like all the rest of the gameplay rules stay the same. How actions work, how spawning works. Everything. You just have to have the extra decks out so that these guys get items because they need the various items to do different stuff. And then you might just have to run into that thing with this particular game versus maybe the other Zombicide games is again what you're going to do about these airlock zones and O2 chambers and going outside. Because if you say, hey, Marvel characters can go out regardless, then the other guys going to have to say everyone has to have an O2 tank. That's fine. So there's definitely that. Here's what an O2 tank looks like, by the way. So a little card that says O2 tank. And it just says this. It shows a little body equipped on it. It says, equipped in the body slot, your survivor may go in exterior zones. And it's, in general, just you get it and you use it just fine. One thing that was actually kind of interesting was they just posted this while I was doing this video. In between when I paused it, I just happened to look this up. They made a new mission. It's a solo mission where one character starts with 3 oxygen tanks, and they have ways to potentially get some more. What it does is at the end of each round, the oxygen tank gets flipped over, and they have to get to an O2 zone up here, or wherever it's at, to refill their oxygen tanks. So they have limited oxygen on the map, and if they run out, then they lose the game. So it makes in that it was a solo mode game, so there's only one character, so there's 3 oxygen tanks is enough for one character. But it was an interesting idea of like a different way to use a card like the oxygen tank, like that it runs out and you have to refill it. I even kind of even mentioned that like if you use it once to go outside, you could have a rule where you have to come back in and refill it before you can go back outside again. Because that makes you take extra actions and it makes going outside even more harmful. But now if there's a building or something you have to get across, it's going to make you have to do that. Or if you run across to the other area, you can't just back right out in case it gets hectic. You have to then stop and get an O2 tank. So you have to wager your options there. But even having a mode where the tanks run out, you could again say, hey, it's poisonous gas in the building, and you're just playing interior modes. And you have to refill your tank. That's something different you could do with that. So that's kind of an option there. Other thing I did want to show off for card-wise is they also have the Searchlight. It says, search, draw 2 cards, can create line of sight into dark zones. This, again, could be an interesting thing where you could have objective tokens on the board somewhere, or you can even just throw this on the board if you wanted to, kind of like you do the bystander cards. You could have these scattered around if you're playing the dark mode maps, and then Marvel characters might have to if they found a flashlight. You can ignore the draw 2 for searching, but you could utilize it for they can now see through the dark zones. Like, assuming, oh, we're in the dark, hey, even Spider-Man's going to probably grab a flashlight if he can, or, Iron Man's going to turn on, like, the beams on his thing, but maybe he needs to find something. You could, find different ways around it. But yeah, so this is something, you could add little cards like this. I even thought, like, something like you could add the thermal grenade cards, or other things. You could do, like, an item deck of something like this, mixed with, like, something like the thermal grenades. Just have MREs, which are food and stuff. You can mix some of the generic non-weapon cards in there, and then be like, hey, if they go to this area, they get to go pick up this crate that has items in it. They get to draw 1 item from it. Like, you have a Tony Stark crate. Like I said, you get little crosses for objectives to do stuff. Tony Stark's crate, they find it, they open up, maybe they get an MRE, which lets them get extra AP to level up their character. Or they find a flashlight, or they find a grenade they can use. Hey, they're fighting zombies. They might, maybe you could argue Spider-Man morally wouldn't use a grenade, but, hey, he probably going to have to go if he's fighting an alien that's trying to kill him. So there's some different options to do with those different things. Alright, so the next thing I want to look at for token-wise is, we're just going to kind of scooch all these guys out there. Well, actually, I want to look at survivors here quick. So, I'm not going to go through every survivor, but if you get the Kickstarter stuff, here's kind of a little hint here. The Kickstarters for Zombicide usually have characters, their miniature survivors, are based off of pop culture references or like movies, TV shows, just general people. So they're kind of fun to pick up. So like these guys right here are sort of like just like from the base game. They're just your generic soldiers. They're whatever. But like this is one of those from the Kickstarter. This is, let me see if I can find her card. I figure I'd show the cards off rather than the miniatures, because they might show. So this is Katie here, who's obviously supposed to be Katie, what's her last name? Starts with an S, I think. But she's supposed to be Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica, the updated version. So you have different actors or actresses that can be in there. So it's kind of a neat thing to pick up the Kickstarter boxes for that. And the thought is mixing with this is another idea for the tiles, which I mentioned in like some of the other things, is you could even, if you want mixes with the Marvel Street Zones, is you could be like, these are movie theater sets. So, you're not in space fighting things. You went to a sci-fi movie theater set, and hey, look, here's some actors that are in there. And that might be kind of fun thing to like, hey, someone's like, I'm going to play as these actors who now have to fight these zombies that are attacked. So that'd be kind of interesting. So they have like, this is supposed to be Ruby Rhodes from Fifth Element, or Lilu from Fifth Element. There's a Stephen Hawking one. We have, Dr. What and Morty McAllister, which are combinations of Marty McFly and Kevin McAllister from Home Alone, or Dr. What, who's obviously Doc Brown and Doctor Who. Of course, then we have Rick and Morty. So there's like some comic ones. There's some other different characters that are just, some are like just Judge Dredd, based off Carl Urban. Then we have some different other characters, like some aliens, some different things there. This is, of course, Harrison Ford from Blade Runner. I love the Nebula reference in Cloud. Yeah, so there's different things there. So you could, so that's a neat thing you could also do where you're like saying, hey, we went to a movie set, and like, again, if you're gonna play like this, is you could be like, hey, I'm gonna play as this guy, and I'm this actress, and now they're fighting with the superheroes. That'd be kind of a neat little, just, again, thematic thing. Or even have these guys, miniatures, be out there and be like, oh, they have to save this character, they have to save the Harrison Ford character who got trapped on the movie set. You know, just different weird mechanic-y things. So, one of the sets here, one of the Kickstarter expansion sets, so it's not retail, has Survivor, I forgot what they're called. They're like extra character cards. These are very similar to the Marvel bystanders. So we had like Wong and Mary Jane and Nick Fury and stuff. Like extra characters you could put on the board to play as. Grab some of those. Oops. So right here we have Blind Al from Deadpool and Betty Brant from the Hulk. And in the Marvel game, you place their cards on the table. If you rescue them, if you rescue them as a hero, you get an extra bonus. If you're a zombie, you basically eat them, and you get a bonus for using them. It's usually like a one-time type bonus, but it's kind of a neat little effect. Well, the companion cards are a similar idea they do, except they follow you around. Like the Marvel characters, like you're trying to rescue them, say, hey, you have to, follow me. These guys just eat them. But these guys bring them with, they gain the ability while they're kind of with them. They put their card on their board. It's kind of a neat idea. These guys are the same idea. So you have like a leader, gives you leader combat reflex skills. The explorer gives extra search actions, or the instructor, lets you gain extra XP. Like, again, search action doesn't do the Marvel much, but you could even change it, like, hey, you get one extra trait draw per turn. As an idea there. Like, you could usually switch search in place of drawing traits. But yeah, it's just some extra. It's only these 3 characters, so it's not much. But it's the same idea as you could use them in the same way. Just different things out there. Alright, so that's those. That's just a quickie on those. Alright, then before we get to the abominations, we want to look at bots. Because the bots are really cool and really fun. So we looked at these two already. We had the Seeker bot, or the Peacekeeper bot. So let's go look at stat cards here. So they have a couple of different things on. They do have, bot, prototype, low profile. Basically low profile, which I believe every single one, most of them have. Not all of them. Most of them do. Basically just means if you shoot into that area, they don't take damage. So if they're fighting a zombie walks into the area, you can shoot at that and you won't hit them. Just built-in thing. And then they show that they don't make any noise. But they do get that token, of course. Now this is showing that this guy has a melee attack and a ranged attack. So it's kind of a neat little different thing there. The back just, again, explains what it can do. Either use that or it moves alongside character. All the bots have that basic idea. And then we had the Maul Sentry Gun, which has a ranged attack of 3-1. So now you can see the difference here between the two different attacks. So the Sentry Gun, they both have range 1 to 3 for their range, but the gun gets to rolls less dice. It only rolls 3 dice, but it only needs to roll 3s to hit, and it does 2 damage. So it doesn't get to roll as many hits per its ranged attack, but it's going to hit more often, and when it does a lot more damage. Versus the robot, the bot here, gets 5 dice, which is great, but he has to roll 5 or higher, and then he only does 1. Now his melee attack is a little bit better, but it's still not as good as the gun. So it's kind of the difference between the two of them. But those are from the base game. Then there's some from the expansions. We're going to kind of just jump through some of these. We have the Falchion Gun, Sentry Gun, and we have the Crawly Bot. So the Crawly Bot, there's its stats. This one just can do ranged, but it can move around. But it has better, better range stats than the Peacekeeper Bot. So it rolls 4 dice, 4, and it does 2. But it's not as good as that sentry gun yet. So there's a little bit difference there. And then we have the falching sentry gun, which is actually worse than the Maul sentry gun, you know, overall, because it has 4, 4, and 1 instead of 3, 3, and 2. But it's better. Actually, it's not even better stats than the Crawly Bot. It's actually worse than the Crawly Bot as well, because it only does 1 damage. So I'm not really, you know, it's not the best weapon. So if you have the other, so if you only bought this game, that's your 2 options. Obviously, if you have other ones, there's different ones to do. But the thing is, you could also put multiple of these guns around. If you have multiple games, you could, you know, put sentry guns all around, or you could have multiple bots instead of just one of each, which would be kind of neat. Alright, so we're going to look at the next 2 we have. These are the 6 that are from the 3 main retail games. Invader, Darkside, and Black Ops. So we have the, we have the Vindicator bot, this big giant guy with treads and feet for some reason. Not sure why he has both. But he has 1 to 3, 3, 4, and 2. So, a little bit better than the Crawl. But he's the only one that does, again, he only has a ranged attack. So far, this is the only one that actually has a melee attack as well. All the rest all have extra ranged attacks. Which is kind of weird. I thought they actually all had melee attacks as well. That actually makes them all a little bit worse. If they had melee attacks, that would actually be a little bit better. But we have the Meteor Sentry Gun. This thing is practically broken. But I love it. So it has a special attack. So it says, no line of sight required, may shoot through interior walls, automatically eliminates 1 target in each zone in a straight line from the zone to the target zone. Target parameters apply, ignore dark zone rules, and can fire from exterior. So, what this means is you pick a spot up to 3 spaces away, you know, and then, yeah, whatever, if I have these guys in here, it's going to eliminate 1 person in each zone. It doesn't care if they're a walker with 1 health or if it's an abomination with 3 health. It's going to eliminate 1 person in every zone. Although it says if there's multiple things in there, it's going to eliminate in priority order. So it will take out an abomination before it takes out walkers. And it'll take out walkers before it takes out runners, so on and so forth. But that's definitely a crazy gun to have. But that's cool. So we have 2 more that came in the Kickstarter. Now these guys are kind of brown, because they're actually very interesting. So, again, Kickstarter has references. We have the Iris Gun and the Buddy Bot, which is, of course, from Portal and Borderlands, which all have 1 to 3 range with special attack, special damages. So they do the same thing. So there's up to 3 Xenos. 1 Xeno suffers 3 damage, or up to 3 Xenos each suffer 1 damage. So, where the Meteor Gun shoots straight through and just kills whatever, these guys have the option of either shooting to 1 zone and doing 3 damage to 1 thing, eliminating 1 thing guaranteed, or they can do 3 damage and eliminate up to 3 things in 1 zone. So they have some different options. Both pretty neat. But the other thing that makes them different, because they're brown, they also can be summoned as abominations. So they just follow the regular abomination rules. They have 3 damage. You know, they do extra damage. They have 3 health. But the idea is they can be robots that can have turned against you. Which again, you could use that for any of the robots if you want. You could even have a mode where you're just fighting robots. With this many, like other sentry guns out, they like on their turn they'll fire and do damage within that zone. Someone may have to roll. But yeah, these guys specifically are meant to be played for both, which is a really neat idea. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and hop into the Xenos now. Alright, so we have our Xenos. So these are, we're going to take the base game ones first. So we have our walker levels. Now, they're called different stuff in here. They're called workers. They're worker Xenos. But I might just refer to them as the typical zombie sides. I like Marvel, even they're like troopers and different things like that. But I'm just going to refer to them the typical zombie side. So you got your walkers, your base guys. You know, 1 action, they move 1. Yeah, they're just Let me do that. I ever get a little bit better look at these guys. Yeah, so they're little alien tentacly guys. Then we have, there's a couple different models for each. Then we have the runners, or in this one they're called the hunters, which have the 1 health but 2 actions. Then we have the tanks, or brutes, which are the bigger guys. So they have the 1 action and they do 2 damage. I gotta say that right. Yeah, so it's 1 action, 1 health, but they have 2 actions, so they can run, move, do that. And then the bigger guys again they deal 2 damage, but they take 2 to take out. So they do a little bit more damage. I think that might be the difference between them and some of the other brutes. I think usually brutes usually only did 1 damage anyhow, but they just take 2 to hit. They were basically harder to kill because they were bigger guys. The Xenos, on the other hand, they actually do more damage. And then, of course, we get to our Abomination, which this guy's the spoiler Abomination, who will play like the molds that we talked about earlier. But this guy takes 3 to defeat, but he also deals 3 damage. So again, I think the original Abominations typically still did 1 damage. So like they can hit you multiple times. They're just really hard to kill because they have lots of health. But these guys will only do they will do 3 damage. So they will take out any hero in 1 hit. Any survivor, doesn't matter. Yeah, so like the Marvel ones, the troopers, which are your walk levels, are 1/1. Your specialists, which are your runners, are 2 actions, 1 health, and your guard is 1 action, which has 2. So it still does 1 damage. And then the superheroes, when you fight them, for example, which would be your Abomination. So if I'm playing as Zombie Hulk and I fight Zombie Spider-Man, they get 2 actions. So that's one thing that's definitely different than the Marvel characters. Is that they do they have 2 actions, so they get to move twice instead of once. So the Marvel characters move a lot quicker. Their toughness, they have different health listed on their cards. I was trying to see how they did damage. Do they still only do... Yeah, so that's one thing that makes the Abominations a little bit crazier in this set, because these guys do 2 damage, these guys do 3 damage. In the Marvel one, everyone only does... They only generally do 1 damage normally. Although, that being said, the superheroes, because they get 2 actions, technically can go up to 2 damage a turn if they're standing in the same zone. So that makes them almost the equivalent to these guys. It makes these guys this much more deadly. But this is one thing I've said that you could always do with this mode is, again, you could have these guys fight the superheroes as they're fighting zombie aliens. You could have those zombies fight them as they're fighting just aliens. You could also play a special mode, which would be kind of fun. Next time I talk what's in the Western one as well. If you had to play a full, big, giant, epic game, you could have one side playing, the Marvel Zombies. So you have, like, one player or team of players playing as, like, Hulk and Deadpool, and then the other team playing Wasp and Spider-Man. And then you have, like, summoning points for the zombies and summoning points for the shield agents. So then you're summoning, you could have a thing where you're summoning, like after the hero's turn, then the zombies summon, and then the zombie heroes go, then the heroes, the shield agents summon, and then it kind of goes that way. But then you can even have an extra step in there where these guys summon, in between each one, or like in between each phase or after each one, so they summon twice a turn, and then they're fighting everybody. I mean, it would be crazy because you'd have 3 times as many zombies on the board and a lot more stuff going on. Or you could even just have like zombie heroes versus superheroes with the abomination, with these guys just summoning by themselves. Like, they're gonna attack both groups. They don't care. So like the zombie heroes' goal is to eliminate all the superheroes. That's their goal. And then the same thing, these guys are trying to eliminate zombies, but they have to deal with this intermingling threat of, aliens in there. Like, they're just trying to fight each other in space, and then the zombie aliens come in, and they all have to fight them. So it's definitely something different you could do there. Alright, so we do have a we have a bunch of other zombie alien xenos to go through, so we're going to look at some of them. So we have another, so this guy, what he does is he just spawns in the mold zones. When he's in a zone, if they're inactive, he'll flip them over. Otherwise, when he's in a zone, he'll spend his action, if he's not attacking something, to spawn another, or when he moves into a new area that doesn't have a mold spawn, he will create a new one. So he's just constantly trying to create a new one. So if you don't really want to use that mold rule or have that in there, you just choose not to use him. The Black Ops set, I mean, just look at these guys though too. So I want to do some comparisons here. So this is your regular survivor next to one of those guys. Here's one of your soldiers, about the size of one of their tanks. You see like how Spidey compares to these guys. But then look at this. Here's Hulk next to one of those. He's as big as the Hulk. Actually, he's bigger physically. But it definitely makes all these guys a lot more intimidating. And then, like, yeah, comparing some of these guys to, like, the turrets or the robots, definitely you can see what they're going to do damage for. Alright, but let's look at our next abomination. We have the Juggernaut. So, yeah, this guy has a booty. So this guy's pretty big as well. Definitely Hulk size. Still does the 3 damage, but his big thing is that he can only be eliminated by something that destroys everything. So if you're playing that one board with them pods, you can blow up them pods, or you'd have to use like that sentry gun or the meteor gun we talked about, or one of the grenades. Again, this might be a reason to like, hey, include that grenade card in there, because you could deactivate that mold and get rid of it, or do that. You have to find them grenades to do this stuff, because basically the Marvel characters have to maybe do a little bit of extra searching they normally wouldn't have to do. Or you could be like, he has 3 health, you could maybe be like, hey, if you do 6 damage to him, it kills him. Like, right, you just give him a double health bar, and you have to do 6 damage to eliminate, which the Marvel characters have to spend extra action points to eliminate them. But it's basically just that much harder to take out. But that's that guy. Alright, then with the Black Ops series, we ended up with these red ones. These are the drillers. So we have the walker level, or workers. We have the runner level. And these guys are a little bit more like, these guys are kind of like Cthulhu-esque, like where they're like tentacly and stuff. These guys are more like insecty, like have car paces. And again, it's kind of neat because those guys are brown, these guys are red. So it could even be, like some of these get summoned one time, some get summoned. You could play them as separate things. You can mix them together if you want. Yeah, then we have the tank version, or the Brute. Like comparing size-wise, these guys are a little bit bigger. So their whole thing is they do that little pit holes that we saw in the token video. Otherwise, they have the same basic stats as the rest of them. It's 1, 1, 2, 3, for health and stuff, and damage. But yeah, they can use them. They can help create them pits. But no, so the thing is with them pits, these guys are supposed to be the only ones that gain advantage from that. So if you're using that, they can create them. And this is the Driller Abomination, who creates more pits. So much like the Spore one created more of the molds, he creates more pits. Yeah, he goes whenever he stands in a zone without an open pit. it gets an extra activation. You set a pit token down, so if you draw another card, it gets an extra pit. If the pit's been flipped over, he can flip it back over, do stuff like that. Yeah, so that's basically what he is, but, like, yeah, you just treat these guys, if you don't want to play like that special little token or that, just treat these as regular guys. It gives you a different flavor of aliens to fight. You're fighting some red ones. They're a little bit different. You know, you can even have different spawn points. Be like, you know, hey, if you're using the decks for these cards, you could be like, put the regular Xenos in one deck, and then they spawn on red tiles. Or like, they spawn on like the blue and green tiles or something. Then these guys spawn on the red ones. So they spawn from different spots in the board. But they'd be coming at you. Definitely some different stuff you could do with those. They're really cool. Now, we do have a crossover pack that added one other type of driller. And these are these guys. These guys are, I forgot what they're called. They're the Blitzers. So, these guys are actually pretty deadly. So, what the Blitzers do is they take the combination of a runner and a tank. So, they have the speed of a runner, because they get to do 2 actions, but they have the strength of a tank, so they do 2 damage. So now these guys move, so they move 2 spaces every turn, or attack twice every turn, but they also do 2 damage. So if they get into a spot where they can attack you, they're like an abomination. They're going to take you out in 1 turn, because they'll do 4 damage. Yeah, so they definitely make that a lot harder. A lot harder to fight. So those are those guys. So that's all the stuff you can find in the base set. That's from Dark Side. Then there are a bunch of Kickstarter exclusive abominations. So we're going to start taking a look at them, which actually add a bunch of really neat stuff. Alright, so one big Kickstarter pack is going to add some new generic small Xenos. So we're going to get these guys, which are called these are the Seekers. The Seeker Workers. So if you've seen other Zombicide, you've seen Seekers before. Now they look, unless I grabbed the wrong models, which are very possible. I think I did. I think I grabbed, let me see if I can find them. I think I grabbed the wrong ones. Oh yeah, here we go. Never mind, those were additional worker models. Here are the Seekers, so they're a little bit bigger. So yeah, they're a little bit bigger than the workers, but, you know, they're not quite as big as the tanks, obviously. So they're kind of like the mid-between. So what the Seekers do is they, just like the Walker, smaller size, they do have 1 action, have 1 damage, take 1 to destroy. But what happens is every time you draw a card that summons one of these, they get an additional action. So if I already have 3 on the board, and then I summon another one, that one spawns wherever it spawns, but then all the rest of them get to move a second time. So it makes them, like, kind of worrisome, like a runner. A runner, you know, oh, can move 2 spaces, so long as I stay at least 2 spaces away, it can only move into my tile unless it happens to draw an activation card. These guys get one, can possibly end up summoning guys and then get an extra activation right away. Like, they can, the next spawn point can summon more when they get a move right away. So you have to watch out for them a little bit more. They're just a little bit more deadly. Alright, our next ones are, we have the Flingers. So these are a little bit more bug-like creatures versus the other guys. Definitely kind of creepy, or crazy looking. So these guys, one action, 1 damage, 1 to destroy, 1 health. But they have a special ability, so they can trace line of sight 1 farther into room zone, so they can shoot an extra space through rooms. So like normally, we like look over here, like a ranged character wouldn't be able to normally attack into this zone. They can attack all the way into this zone. They can go 1 extra zone. I'm sorry, they can trace lines of sight. So normally they look in here and that's all the farther they can see. Like these guys can only see into this zone. These guys can see all the way over here. They have a little bit better eyesight. It says whenever they activate with a line of sight, they in range of 0 to 2, they perform an attack. So they get to do ranged attacks. So we haven't had any of the Xenos so far that do ranged attacks. These guys will add that. So again, makes them deadly because, again, if you look at walkers or tanks or abominations, you only move one space at a time. You know, as long as you stay one space away from them, you know, that they can move, they'll be in your space, but then they don't do anything unless they happen to draw the extra activation card. Same as runners, you know, you stay 2 spaces away, you're pretty much fine. You guys almost guaranteed even more by staying at 1 extra space away, because even if they do get an extra activation, they only then enter your zone. But like these guys, because, or like the Seekers, because they can get more extra activations, or these guys can attack at 2 range. You know, the thing is, they're going to move, and then they'll attack. But if they're already in range, they're going to attack. So that means now you have to stay 3 spaces away from them. You know, which make them that much harder. You know, but definitely a fun, interesting thing to do. Then the last type of, like, regular style character are the Xenomorphs. These are flying creatures, which we haven't seen too many. It's not like some of the older games had crows, which would be ideally the same type as this. So these have, you know, 1 action, 1 health, do 1 damage, same exact thing as that. They basically, like, these smaller guys are all worker level or walker level priority for stuff. But these guys cannot be eliminated by melee actions. So because they're able to fly, you can't punch them. So that makes them a lot harder to deal with. The other thing is they move up to 3 zones per activation. Now they still only get 1 activation, so they can't attack that turn, but they can clear the board a lot faster. So when they spawn, they're gonna be on top of you in like 2, 3 turns, like 1, 2, maybe 3 turns, depending on where you are. And then they're gonna start attacking. And since you can't melee attack them, you know, it's a little bit harder. And fighting Marvel characters actually becomes a lot more difficult because these survivors from Zombicide, you know, can usually carry around multiple weapons. So you could carry in one hand, you could have a melee weapon, one hand you could have a ranged weapon at all times. So that way you can, during your turn, you can switch between what attacks you have. Marvel characters have 1 attack. So, like, Hulk only has a melee attack as a basic attack. So he's never going to be able to punch these guys. You know, you're going to have to find, oh, I have to run over and get Wasp, or get Doctor Strange, or someone who has a ranged attack to be able to hit them. So it actually makes these guys a lot more deadly to the Marvel characters, which is kind of a fun idea. And again, with all of these, even just looking at the different stuff the other Zombicide games have done, it can make you really think about things they could do for Marvel to like really enhance it. So like we just looked at this. We have currently right now for Marvel, we eventually will get shooter zombies with the Hydra agents. We'll be able to do ranged attacks, but those guys are zombies, so they're not shield agents. But now they could have made some shield agents that have range. That'd be kind of fun if you're trying to play as the zombies. Of course, you know, it's fight Hydra either way. Hydra sucks for everybody. Or additionally, you have like these guys that can fly. You could give like jetpack shield agents who fly around on jetpacks. Again, they can't be hit with melee attacks. That would make them, of course, I know that would make them a lot harder if these guys don't have melee abilities or option to switch to a ranged ability. But that would also make you have to prioritize your team a little bit better. Like, knowing if you added them into the game, like they are potentially in there, you wouldn't want to just take, oh, I'm just going to take Black Panther and the Hulk. Well, I can't take out flying guys now. Or they could add some, they could add trait cards that, like, may give people the ability to, like, use a ranged attack, right? Like, or have objects around the board. Like, look at the Avenger sign, you could have more objects like that. Like telephone pole or cars, you know, that people could use staggered throughout the game a little bit more. But that could definitely be some different stuff to do. Alright, so now we're going to look at a bunch of abominations. Now, all of these abominations have special effects. Now, they all follow the standard health rules. Of, they have one action, they deal 3 damage, they take 3 to destroy. but they all have special other abilities. So the first one we're going to look at is here's Babyface. Babyface is probably the simplest one. It basically says when he's eliminated, all other Xenos on the board immediately get an extra activation. So if you take out the big fat baby, everybody else gets to go. So you really have to be paying attention when you take him out. Because otherwise, you might get swarmed by something else. But it does definitely make for an interesting, different, little minor rule. And again, you can see how big these guys are compared to some of these. Alright, so the next one up we're going to look at is called Mother-in-Law. I love these guys. Like, they're definitely just cool sculpts. If you watch my Western video, it's the same idea. I like the abominations, are really neat. Again, you can even if you want to take some of these guys and not play on the Invader tiles, you can take them in the Marvel tiles. Aliens are attacking New York. The superheroes have to fight off the aliens. Don't even consider them zombies. Just consider them aliens. Get some of these on special abilities, different colors, different things. It could definitely be an interesting mode that way as well. This guy's special ability is every time it is targeted by a ranged attack, it isn't eliminated. It interrupts the phase and immediately performs an extra activation and then the survivor room. So if you shoot him, you shoot the mother-in-law from a distance, you shoot him with a ranged attack, it basically says nope. It gets to do an activation, so it might move. It might attack if it's in the same zone as somebody else. And it can happen every time they do it. So, yeah, so you have to almost kill it with a melee attack. Otherwise, it's going to keep getting to do stuff. So it's kind of a neat idea. Instead of just saying it's immune to ranged attacks, it's saying it is immune to ranged attacks, but it's also going to be pissed off by it and come back and try and fight you some more. So there's that dude. Here's this guy. This is the Shadow Abomination, so it definitely looks like the alien xenomorph from the Aliens movies. Type theming, like the little back thing, kind of like the spiked head, but they had to make it just different enough. So this guy shares the same priority levels as a hunter, and can only be eliminated with a melee attack, or something that kills everything. So this guy does completely dodge range, but also making him priority level is the same as the hunter. So the priority level means if you're shooting with a ranged attack, yeah, so if you're shooting with some sort of ranged attack in there, which I'm not sure why that matters when you can only be taking out with a melee attack, but if you were shooting at him for some reason, or you're shooting into that zone, like, it won't hit him, because the priority are abominations. You hit them first, they're the biggest, then the workers or the walkers because they're the slowest, and then the runner or hunter because they're the fastest, they can dodge. So they're the last ones you'll be able to take out. So this guy's basically, if you're shooting into that zone, he's not even going to absorb that damage for everybody else. He'll let you take out everything else first, just so he can keep going. It's just kind of an interesting little mechanic there. Alright, up next we have the Widowmaker. A giant spidery looking dude. I love the little plastic thing for the stand. The Widowmaker gets to move up to 2 activations, or 2 zones per activation, so it gets to move a lot quicker. But it does have a special thing. It says, you choose its zone, it does not change its destination during the zone, even if it sees something else. But it still has 1 action. So what that's saying is that if it sees someone, it's going to attack, it's going after Wasp for whatever reason. Or let's say it's even here, and it's going after Spider-Man. And it sees Spider-Man in this door, because it can see him, like, way over here. So that's what it's going to do. It can move up to 2 zones. So it's going to go 1 zone here, but then instead of turning and now, hey, Wasp is closer, it's going to be like, nope, I'm still going to go towards Spider-Man. So it gets to move more, but it's going to stay in the same path of whoever it saw. I think Yeah, so the flying ones do the same thing when they get multiple. So like if it was here again and it saw Spider-Man, it's gonna instead of like it's gonna go 1, 2, and then 3 that way. And this is different than like a runner who gets 2 activations. So a runner gets activation 1, because they're going after Spider-Man, and then their second one, they're gonna turn and see Wasp and go towards Wasp. So that's a little bit of difference there. The Widowmaker here is big giant spidery dude. Also says whenever it activates in a line of sight of 0 to 1, so it does a little bit of range, so it gets to move more, and it gets extra range. It performs an attack targeting every zone with any survivor in range. So what this means is, I'm going to move all of these guys off the board for a sec. So if this guy is right here on this current turn, he gets to move 2 spaces, but he doesn't change. So he moves 1, 2. Now what he does is he attacks everything within 0 to 1 range. So he attacks Spider-Man, and he attacks Hulk. That's crazy, right? Yeah, so that can be really hard to deal with. Now, again, one thing that's different is these guys normally do 3 damage. You might have to change that for Marvel, maybe to mark it down, because the hero characters only have 3 health to begin with. I think most zombies have 3 health. You know, some of them only have 3 health. So it's like it would kill them all in 1 hit. Now, the reason why, so the soldiers in Invaders only have 3 health to begin with, and the civilians only have 2 health. But the mitigating thing is they can get armor, which they can put on, which absorbs damage, and the Marvel characters don't have that. So you might have to maybe reduce their damage down to 2, so that way they're not outright killing everybody in 1 hit with no way to dodge it. Or you could have them, hey, spend an action to like negate a point of damage. That's also maybe a different option. Some of that you might just need to. Then the last one we have for these Kickstarter ones here is the Stomper. It's this big husking mass of everything. Says whenever he's within range 0 to 2 of its destination, he performs a stomp whenever he's in 0 to 2 range of his destination zone at the end of the phase. No line of sight is required. All survivors in the zone fall to the ground, lay their miniatures down. They must spend an action to get up. So that's actually kind of fun too. So what this guy will basically do is, right now he sees Spider-Man. He gets to move his one turn. He goes here. Let's say he's even right. Yeah, he's right here. He stops, end of his turn. He does a stomp. He knocks Wasp over. Now Wasp has to spend a thing. Now he doesn't attack people, but the thing is, that's kind of fun because it's a neat little mechanic, because it makes everyone then have to waste one of their actions just to get up. But it could also mess with some other guys as well. So his machines are not obviously affected. Okay, so that's all those guys. We do have 2 other ones to go through who are from a different Kickstarter expansion pack. And these ones are really fun as well. So we have this Tentacly monster, this giant horror here. This is the Xenom horror. So Xenom is what they're trying to harvest in these mines. So this guy's, supposed to be, I guess, like made of or like enhanced by this material that these guys are harvesting. Now, these guys are all roughly-ish about the same size. Like, they're huge, but they're bigger. Now, if like, you looked at the Western, again, I'm going back to that one, there were some really huge guys in there, like, versus this. There's some really big miniatures with this. These guys are all about the same size. And then, even if you look at, like, classic or modern zombie size, all the abominations are roughly big human size. Nothing generally terribly oversized. But I think they're a little bit bigger than these guys. So the Xenom Horror says he spawns 2 zones away from the noisiest zone on the board. If several zones are eligible, players choose. If no route is available to the noisiest zone, you discard him, he draws another. Put an active mode token spawning in a zone. So what this guy does is he comes in, he'll do it, but he'll spawn wherever he can. 2 spots away from wherever he can see the noise zone. Now, Marvel, again, doesn't use the noise tokens. So, essentially, you could just tweak that a bit and just say he's going to spawn 2 zones away from a hero. So, like, right now he could spawn, here, because he'd be 2 spots away from Wasp, or, he could have him, you might have to, like, maybe tweak it so he's going to spawn the furthest away he can from being 2 heroes. So he could spawn here, he could spawn here, he could spawn here. Now he's not going to spawn here, even though he's 2 away from Spider-Man, because he's 1 away from Wasp. He'll try and spawn the farthest distance away. But since he also acts as an extra mold in there, if you're playing with the spore jet, or the spore abomination, and you're using the mold, this guy can make things that much more complicated. Alright, so then we got one more. This will be the last one. This is probably one of my favorites. This is the Brood Mother. From the comics, we have the Broods. Again, this is always an option that Marvel can, hopefully they'll maybe introduce if they do a space in one of the expansions. They do a second year Kickstarter or something. So the Brood Mother Abomination spawns into the zone. When she has 1 action, she deals 1, and she only takes 1 to destroy. So even though she's an abomination, she's pretty weak. But what she does is when she spawns in, she spawns 8 of these little mini broods in with her. Now, the game only gives you 8, so you only have 8. She only spawns them once. But she comes in, she drops her 8 little broods. I'm sorry, she still has 3, 3, 3. The brood children are 1, 1, 1. So she's still a full abomination. I'm sorry, these guys are same as like Walker levels. They're 1, 1, and 1. Yeah, so it says when the Brood Mother spawns 8 brood when in its zone when it ends a move within 2 zones or less from a survivor. So she comes in, she gets to move around, but if she ends within 2 spaces away from someone, she'll spawn a bunch of guys to start attacking. No line of sight or open road is required unless she's somewhere near them. But you may only do this once per time she spawns. And then she says, the brood children, the little dudes here, say they move up to 2 zones per activation, much like some of the other characters. So they get to move a lot quicker, but they only do 1 damage, but the fact they get to move twice makes them get closer. So that's definitely an interesting mechanic there as well. Alright, so that's what we have for this. Now, there's obviously some, like, this is most of the content. There's some stuff I don't have, so I can't show you every single thing, because there's some stuff that's either not out, or I didn't get, like, some of the comic book stuff, and I might be missing some special one-time miniatures here or there. But there's a lot of content here. So what's really neat, I think, with this one combines, like, other videos I talked about, combining the modern stuff, which is city, regular human zombies, which is kind of very thematic. If you don't want to fight against shield agents, you don't want to fight against superhero zombies, you can do that. This adds the fact that you can either take it to space, and you could fight in a space station and fight aliens that way, or you could bring all the aliens to Earth and have them fighting on Earth, which would be kind of a neat thing as well. Like, even like, one of the Marvel sets, you get Thanos. He comes in, he does stuff. You could be like, oh, you know what, we don't have, based off the movies, we don't have the, why can't I think of their names? They start with a C. I keep wanting to say Cthulhuans, but that's not right. The Chthonians. Is that right? I might be wrong. My brain doesn't want to connect what those are called right now. The Chitauri. That's it there. In the MCU, he has the Chitauri. It's kind of like his enforcers. You could substitute these guys in as the Chitauri for him. So it's like you're fighting him, so instead of summoning the other zombies or the other heroes or whatever you're fighting, you could be like, hey, we're fighting Thanos. We could use these guys as his minions. He's summoning other aliens to come down and help fight us. Or, again, you're playing Guardians of the Galaxy, or X-Men went to space a bunch. You know, that might be good. Avengers have been in space. You know, there's definitely things there. Fantastic Four, they hid into the negative zone. And these guys are hiding out in the negative zone, and you have to fight them. You know, I don't believe we have any negative zone characters in there. I don't think we have Annihilus in this set. Trying to remember. I don't think so. I know we have them in Marvel United, but that's a different game. But yeah, there's definitely things you could do there. Or like I said, you have like the red guys, the Blitzers. You could use them as an like have them like the little tunnels and have them maybe be their spawn spots around the board and have like oh crap, like Mole Man summoning zombies or they're coming from below. And have that be a different spawn idea than that. Maybe you have to spend actions to try and close those up so they quit spawning. But you know, there's a lot more that start out. You know, definitely different, interesting things you could do with all these different characters and stuff. Or again, like using the bots, you could even have a thing. You have enough of these, you could have heroes against the bots. You know, the bots are all summoned. They're out there. They're like you have them all basically like they're just automated. They're attacking anything they see. Maybe you could get to a control spot. You could take control of them. You could turn them off. Otherwise, you have to try and destroy them or avoid them. You know, there's a lot of different possibilities you can do with this set. It's definitely cool. I like the idea. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out the other videos. Check out Classic. Check out Western. Check out Fantasy when I get that one done. Hopefully, a couple of months, you know, from the time this video gets posted, we'll have the rest of the Marvel Zombie stuff, and then we can do unboxings there, and then maybe we can come back and look at some of this stuff in a second video. You guys have any other suggestions for me? Let me know in the comments. I like doing these type of things. This is all started because of a suggestion. So let me know. See you guys later. Bye.